Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome for coming. Welcome, jeez. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming. Obviously, the snow isn't even here and it's already affecting me. Roll call, Mr. Lundberg.
Oh.
Yes.
Odie? Yes. Saxor? Yes. Scott?
Yes.
Bell?
Yes.
If there are no additions that need to be made to the agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve it as presented, please.
So moved.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. No conflict of interest disclosure or waiver requests tonight, and I don't believe we have any community input tonight. That takes us to our general business section. Under oral reports, we have a good news report here tonight from Brandon Valley Intermediate School.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me take the time to speak tonight and kind of be the kickoff to the good news reports for the school year. It's crazy that we already started talking about them, and I think we have it scheduled out for the rest of the school year. So I wanted and volunteered to go first. As many of you know, we run the PBIS system at the intermediate school, think quite highly of it, do a lot with it, in and outs of different things. And each month we do, or each quarter, excuse me, we do different Linksway day items. And so this month, October 28th, we did a bunch of different things around the October characteristic of responsible. And so the purpose was continue to provide those authentic experiences and also have a servant heart and try to give back to others. Something that we strive with the students there is our community does a lot for us. They give a lot to us as a school district, and just trying to teach them to understand that as we're a big heartbeat of the community, we also want to give back to the community and show our appreciation to them. So we developed a day where our guidance counselors did some activities on responsibility and being responsible to kind of juggle some things, talking about their lives and young lives. One we do is a tennis ball activity where they have a bunch of different things on tennis balls, family, school, sports, and they throw one tennis ball out and the group has to keep it going, and pretty soon you add another tennis ball, and you understand and realize when you start juggling 5 or 6 things, things can get complicated. So just understanding that responsibility of things. And then after that, we collaborated with the community. We collaborated with the Chamber of Commerce and Rake the Town. So we had 2 of our teams, so 2 of our kids went around and raked different yards. I think we ended up doing 9 of them in the community that day. We also cleaned all the city parks. We coordinated with the city and did all the major parks and cleaned them. Also got the softball and baseball fields kind of cleaned up out there, as both kind of coaches are in our building. So did some extra stuff at Aspen Park. We did the state park as well and coordinated with them and walked through that kind of camping season, getting over and different things like that, tried to help them clean up. And then we also did trash cans, which you can kind of see on this little video. We have done them every year. If you've ever been to the parks, you see them painting trash cans. That's our kids. Our art teacher does a great job of trying to get that stuff out in the community. So we had a group or a team do that. And then we also built buddy benches and a picnic table as well, so giving some kids some opportunity to be able to do those things as well. So we made 7 or 8 buddy benches that went out to the different schools. We also put them at like our bus stop, just for places for kids to go. Gives them an opportunity to run a power drill and do some of those different things, learn some measurements and whatnot too. But another thing of being responsible and having an end product when you're done. So that was kind of the major part of our day and our morning with that, where they spent a couple hours doing that. And then the finality of it is then we had our PBIS day, which they earn tickets for doing the expectations in the building. They accrue them throughout the quarter, and then they can spend them on different things. So then in the afternoon, that's what we kind of call our Linksway day, where they could do different things. Went to the state park, flag football tournament, dodgeball, there's movies. Some people did a Halloween art craft. So a bunch of different things for them to be able to do. Our next one's going to be December 16th, but this one was really just to try to get our kids out in the community. I'm hoping that next year we can kind of hopefully go to the Chamber of Commerce and try to get some more kids doing it. It was kind of cool to see 200 kids walking down the street with rakes and gloves and garbage bags going from house to house. So that is something that we did, and again, just want to try to say thank you to our community, but also give back to them because I know they're huge supporters of what we do in this district. So That was to keep me on track for 4 minutes, and it did it. Questions?
I don't have questions other than thank you. I think it just what we do above and beyond outside the classroom. I have this image of all the juggling and that sticks to me even as an adult. So thank you very much for what you do, you and all your staff.
All right, next we have administration report, Superintendent Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items to update the board on here this evening. Our accreditation was completed on November 22nd. I included a note from Penny from the Department of Education who facilitated our accreditation. Overall, went really well. It is relevant to note we have a couple of items that we have to tighten up in terms of some policy verbiage, so that'll be coming here on a couple of different policies over the course of the next few months. There's a 90-day window that they give you to tweak those respective items. So overall, went extremely well. I just want to reemphasize the quality of work done by our Director of Instruction and the team that she assembled to work through the required process for the documentation of teaching to the standards, to the depth of the standards, the rigor of the standards, et cetera. They raved about the quality of work that was produced. So just want to say thank you very much, because there are not very many schools who check that box as approved on the first time around, and we did. So extremely proud of the work done out of that office and the staff that dedicated time to that. I want to talk just real briefly, proposed social studies standards, no changes in terms of our approach. We've held the meeting. We are in the process of developing our consensus comments. Those will be submitted to DOE. But I did want to note that there has been a change to the implementation timeline, and that was altered at their last board meeting. The transition year has been changed and spread out over 2 years. As opposed to just 23-24, and the Teach to the Standards implementation year has also been moved back 1 year. So previously it was 24-25 when they were to be implemented and taught, and now they will be 25-26. With all of that being said, the process of 4 hearings will be completed prior to that board taking any action, as I understand it. So just a heads up on that process as we will be submitting our comments, but more specifically wanted to make certain that everyone was aware that the implementation timeline has been altered. Academic calendar for next year's in progress. Again, you will see that presentation on January 9th, and then potential adoption at our second meeting in January. Hard to believe we are already in the process of really starting to focus in on the FY24 budget year, but we are. I have outlined for the Board of Education and the community our process in the development of our FY24 budget. The 5-year plans are really a tremendously important piece of our budget process. Those are due from administration in December. That gives us as central office staff the ability to vet those respective 5-year plans and then present to the Board of Education. But January to March, you'll see budget forms, documents distributed, completed, compiled, and reviewed by the central office. You as the Board of Education will receive a presentation of the final 5-year plan in February. In March, we will approve new staffing positions. And then also in March, we will do a preliminary capital outlay budget approval. So ultimately what a preliminary capital outlay budget does is it outlines the big ticket items that require us to bid the projects through the required procurement processes. And then when numbers come in high, you have to do less. And if numbers come in really well, we can do a little more. So the preliminary capital outlay budget is really a key piece of the development of our final budget, but you'll see that in March. And then in May, you'll get a preliminary budget presentation. And then in July, we will hold our public budget hearing, and we will have potential action at that meeting or at a future meeting. In terms of our academic calendar, we have a 2-hour early dismissal on December 21st. Winter break begins on December 22nd, and there is no school through January 2nd. January 16th, there's no school. That's for workshop and in-service. It also corresponds with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it's also relevant to note that that's a required in-service workshop day in accordance to our master contract because it's the end of semester one, and that's outlined in our negotiated agreement. And then we have no school February 17th through the 20th. It's our President's Day break. I want to touch on the high school addition. There is no change to our schedule, no change to our priorities. I do want to specifically thank all of our respective departments for the great work that was done during the planned power outage. The coordination efforts that took, I can't even begin to explain all of the moving parts associated with that, so I want to thank Buildings and Grounds. I want to thank the high school custodial staff. I want to thank our IT staff. They kept our servers up and running so the rest of the district had internet. The high school staff, the high school administration. I mean, there's not, the CNS staff. I shouldn't have even mentioned one department because I'm going to end up missing one because it literally touched every single aspect of operations. Overall, couldn't have been happier with the way it went. I will tell you that we thought it was going to be a 2-day project, but it didn't know if we needed an extra day. Well, it ended up not getting flipped on until Wednesday at 8 or 8:30 a.m. Because of some difficulties that the general contractor worked through in terms of busting out some concrete. It's a little more than they thought, so we were very lucky to have the third day built in. So overall, that went about as well as could have been expected. And then certainly we appreciate our parents and our students' understanding of having to go distance learning for those 2 respective days. So overall, high school project remains on track in terms of schedule and budget. A couple images for you. You can see that they are getting Area A enclosed. So Area A is enclosed, and they will start with some of that flat work, cement, and the next phases of Area A. The roof decking, again, almost all complete in Area A. You can see the elevated portion there. That's in the center of a hallway to allow some natural light in. There's another shot of what exactly that is and looks like. Steel stud construction in Area B continues. And then our masonry continues as well. So now that the temperatures have cooled down, you start to see the heated shelters for the masons. Again, Area B structural steel is in progress. You can see the masonry shelters behind there as well. They're working in Area B as well. So this specific image I wanted to draw your attention to. So this is what shut down our high school for a couple of days. Ultimately, the large transformers located next to the building had to be moved out approximately 50 feet or so to what will now be outside of the building. And then they had to lay all their conduit and everything for their electrical back into the mechanical room. So that is ultimately what it took. Crane had to pick up the transformers and move those respective items to their new locations. So I wanted to highlight that. Again, Area B construction is in progress. You can see the structural steel, the masons at work. The Area C, that is basically the 2-story area on the northeast corner of the building. Footings, foundation walls are all in and backfilled, and they'll continue down to Area C with structural steel in the future. Madam Chair, that's all I have. With that, would certainly entertain any questions that you guys have.
Any questions for Superintendent Larson tonight? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, Superintendent. No board policy tonight. That takes us to our general business. First item, public hearing of the Brandon Valley School District Pandemic Response Plan, which is our mandatory 6-month review.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, in accordance to all of the ESSER funds that were distributed to schools, there's a mandatory 6-month review that requires an opportunity for public feedback, et cetera. This is our mandatory 6-month review. Would note that there is no change, or I would recommend no change to our current pandemic response plan or safe return plan. The 2023 Safe Return Plan has been and continues to be available on our COVID-19 website. And then our ARP ESSER 3 budget has not changed from this fall. We've just simply tightened it up with Mr. Lundberg giving me the exact dollar amounts for our reading interventionists, class size reduction teachers, et cetera. So those items are all items that you are aware of. The dollar amounts are just exact now in comparison to estimates. So with that, would certainly welcome public feedback and input on our ESSER plan during this mandatory review period.
It's a pretty quiet group out there, so thank you for that, Superintendent Larson. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve items 2 through 5 as presented.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Personnel, I would entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 5 as presented, please.
So moved?
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Under communication, there's a thank you from a family there for your review. That takes us to our formal board reports. Does anyone have a formal board report that they would like to share this evening?
Well, I appreciate Mr. Scott being able to try to make the trip out to Pier. My condolences. So we did have our delegate meeting, and prior to that, our executive director meeting was the day prior. There aren't going to be, I think, any huge, disruptors, I think, on Capitol Hill. We did set our priorities for ASBSD. The biggest one remains and has always been to get the biggest amount of money for public education. Number one is really so that we can raise the salaries for teachers across the state of South Dakota. The other is so that we can draw more teachers to the state of South Dakota. And number three, so we can supply better education for the students in South Dakota, but that all feeds into the same bucket. So that is really what we're going towards. We're not going in with the lesser or greater or, with what is, cost of living. It's really just what is on the table and take all that we can. That is the piece of the pie. So that is the number one objective. The number two that is out there is around curriculum. Obviously, there's a lot of bustle around curriculum right now, and the fight right there is to make that local control. So that is the number two priority. Number three is around behavioral and mental health. That is also a big thing following out with COVID. There's going to be a lot of budget money, and again, that is to make sure that the piece of the pie comes back to public education. The fourth is not necessarily a priority, but again, we're trying to put as much momentum as we can behind CTE. There's two camps. There's the camp behind where I think the larger schools fall into of we want grants that can be matched by the local businesses for the structures. Then there are other smaller schools that are more of maybe we could just get some funding that goes towards all the schools so we can just have some programs that we could maybe fit within our current structures. So that's kind of where we're looking at. It seems as though we're getting better traction with the large state grants and getting that seems to have a little bit more momentum. So I just want to let you know that the CTE thing is getting a lot of speed and some support. We're looking at some different legislators that looks like they might put that forward for us, so stay tuned. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The only other thing I would say, keep your ears open, and maybe we'll have to tap some of our legislators that are more local, is the whole thing about local control for which days or set voting. I know that has come up a little bit last year, but it looks like it might actually make a bill this year for, they want to tell us what days of the year we get to actually have school board votes. I will tell you, there are many more small districts in the state of South Dakota, and they are for that because they are getting very low turnout. Bigger districts, there's a lot more cons than there are pros. there's still local control for bonds, but not so much for school boards. I will tell you, the big con right now is because of everything else we want to make friends with, that might be one that they're like, well, we'll give you that one. So I'm just kind of putting that out for you to keep your eyes and ears open about. Questions or concerns?
The only other item I would note in terms of legislation or legislative items, our legislative breakfast will be on Friday, December 9th at 7:30 a.m. in the Brandon Valley High School Community Room. The agenda for that meeting has been published, so we're all set to go. Not all of the legislators that represent pieces of the Brandon Valley School District will be able to be here, but a majority will be. So I just wanted to make certain and put that out there.
Anyone else have a board report tonight they'd like to share? All right, if not, that takes us to the end of our scheduled agenda, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.